If you're just getting started with bag making, or you're tired of using basic quilting cotton for your bags, then stick around because I'm going to talk to you about all the different kinds of fabric that work really well for bags. First, let's discuss types of fabric. So there's two core tenets when it comes to fabrics and making a selection. You have wovens and then you have knits. Knits are stretchy. They have spandex in them sometimes if you really care about holding its shape. Knits are what makes it possible for me to wear these pants. However, knits are unfortunately not the best thing to use for bag making. The point is, knits are going to be really stretchy, which means they're not really going to be able to hold their shape when Barbara decides to put 10 bricks in the nice tote bag you made for her. And I can totally sympathize. I have a ton of really nice knits that I've gotten over the years that are a mixture of spandex and jersey fabrics. Unfortunately, I'd have to spend several hours applying woven interfacing to them to make them behave like a woven, and even then, you're still going to see all of the tiny little interlocked knit and purl stitches in them, so it kind of gives it a really weird grainy look. In general, you want to use a woven fabric such as this quilting cotton right here, full of eggs and bakey. A woven fabric is going to have very firm weaves. Usually you want to use a denser fabric. So definitely don't get monk's cloth, because I have a lot of emotional damage from that one time I used monk's cloth to make a Jedi robe. It was horrible and it fell apart. So really what you're looking for is a densely woven fabric such as quilting cotton, denims, twill, things like that. You can even use canvas or duck cloth if you have a heavyweight enough machine. Aesthetically speaking, it's a lovely satin. However, it's not really going to look all that great on a bag if it gets snagged and runs, which is exactly the behavior of a satin when it gets snagged and runs and leaves a gap, and you're like, great, there goes my wedding day. Which of course is a perfect segue into my second point, which is identifying and selecting fabrics of the appropriate weight. You know how sometimes we'll refer to the weight of a thread as weight, or once you get into beefier threads, you'll call it tex. So tex 70 versus a 40 weight thread, which is considered to be all-purpose. Well, with fabric, it's called GSM, grams per square meter. A typical quilting cotton such as this is going to be about 140 GSM, which I would actually say would be the bare minimum in terms of fabric weight that I would go with. Oftentimes we'll refer to a quilting weight cotton, and that being the all-purpose end-all be-all. And this isn't to say you can't make a bag out of quilting cotton. You absolutely can. You're just going to need to have to assess your interfacing needs for that fabric depending on the type of bag that you're making. For example, if you're making a rather large tote, you're probably going to want to have 1 or 2 layers of woven interfacing, if not another layer of foam or fleece. Of course, interfacing is a completely separate topic, so I'm just going to leave a little card up there so you can click it and go learn more about interfacing for bag making if you need that primer. The next move up would be going with denim or twill or even a canvas. This is a polyester canvas and it is roughly 200 to 220 GSM. It's still really kind of flexible, as you can see, but it's got a lot more body to it, a lot more weight, and it's going to be able to handle the stress that's put on a bag, because you know there's always a Barbara with 10 bricks. You could also refer to these kinds of fabrics as bottom weight fabrics. These are the kinds of fabrics that you would be putting on your booty if you're making pants in the clothing world. In fact, they're a natural step up from quilting cotton as you're learning to make bags and getting a lot more comfortable using your machine, especially when trying to go over some of those heavier seams. Again, I have videos to help with that too. These are actually a lot cheaper to source as well, especially if it's a polyester canvas. If you get cotton canvas, sometimes that can be a little more on the pricey side. But Either way, because of its pricing, it allows you to make larger bags out of these. So if it's a bag that doesn't need a whole heck of a lot of structure, you can get by with just a little bit of fleece, maybe one thin layer of a woven interfacing, and you're pretty much golden to make a good bag for less than $10. Then of course, once you've graduated from using those bottom weights, you can go with outdoor furniture weight, otherwise known as vinyl. There's several different kinds of vinyl. Some of them are great for bags, some not so much. The ones I'm holding here are perfectly fine for bag making. However, oftentimes when you go to a big box fabric store, you'll see the kind of vinyl that has a very thin layer of PVC on top of it, but like this quilting batting on the bottom. That is not a structured vinyl that is meant to hold weight. It's meant to cover really crappy chairs so you don't have to buy new ones. In fact, let's roll this out and take a look at why we consider this marine vinyl to be a somewhat decent one. The back of it actually has a woven section. So this is PVC on top of a layer of woven fabric, but it's densely woven, and also this is actually about an ounce to 2 ounces in terms of thickness if you're used to addressing leather. Here's another marine vinyl that I got from Joann's, where it's a lot more obvious that the backside has that woven backing to it. Also, you'll see the print on it. Honestly, if it's a vinyl that looks like this, you're fine. If it's a vinyl that has like that quilt batting, the lofty look, and it's all fuzzy, that you don't want. That said, there are some vinyls that come from more of like the custom printing world that do have like a kind of fleece, but they're okay, and I'm gonna show you that next. This is a custom vinyl that I had printed through my supplier that I found through Alibaba. That is basically HSD ribbon, and I love them and they're awesome. I will leave their information in the description below should you want to explore that yourself. Last I checked, they didn't have minimum order quantities and fast shipping because I just let them cut them down to either 12 or 18-inch rolls. You can see it's kind of got this fuzzy look to it. So that is kind of a fleece backing, but it's an extremely dense kind of fleece, and it's a very thick vinyl. This is actually thicker than some of the marine vinyls that I've been using, and it looks really nice once printed. It's got this wonderful low kind of texture on it. It's not completely smooth, but it's also not pebbly, nor is it hashed. Point being, this vinyl is perfectly fine to make bags out of because the fleece is so densely put together, woven, whatever. The thing that I would advise if you're getting customs with this kind of fleece backing is that you use interfacing. You're going to need at least one layer of a woven interfacing. And no, I don't mean like Decobond or just Decovil. You need a woven interfacing on the back of this to give that fleece a little bit more strength. Once you do that, you're fine. However, and this is general for most marine vinyls, if you are stitching and the stitches are too close together, you're going to perforate it and it's going to rip apart no matter what you interface it with. And what do you know? I have a video on that too. And one day, even I wish to graduate to the point where I feel confident enough to use leather. And even if you do use leather, guess what? You gotta interface it. A lot of people will interface with something like Pellon Shape Flex or Decovil Light if they really want to, but either way, same kind of properties and restrictions that you have with the vinyls is that if you do actually use a very short stitch length, you're going to perforate it and it's just going to rip. Now, as far as the weight goes, that always depends on the structure of the bag. For this particular weight, I would use this for a very loose bag, like a hobo bag or something, but I definitely wouldn't use it for a satchel. I mean, you know, designs aside, that's helping you choose which kind of weight of fabric you want, just in general. Oh, and as an honorable mention, there are a lot of people who use cork fabric. I will warn you though that you really have to pay attention to the quality of the cork and who's doing the supplying. Some corks are known to crack. They're not really meant to be used for sewing and bag application, so they'll crack and fall apart, specifically in corners and tight curves. All right, point number 3. The design of the fabric matters. If you're going with a really cute design, you want to make sure that the design is going to be the highlight of the bag, but not distracting. And of course, this is just a little bit of advice. You don't have to stick to it. Choose what you want for your bags and what you make. But in general, you want a larger design or pattern on your fabric for a larger bag, instead of a smaller design, because if you get a small toss design, something that repeats a bit too much, it'll be extremely busy and difficult to look at on a larger bag. However, those smaller prints are great for smaller bags like wristlets. And on the flip side, you really shouldn't use one of those larger patterns on a smaller bag because you probably won't even recognize what the pattern is. Let's look at some examples. Now, I'm not in the habit of showing other people's pattern pieces off on my videos without permission, so I'm going to use this acrylic template for one of my mini backpacks. It's kind of hard to see because it's clear, surprise! But this is what I used to fussy cut with. So what I'm going to do for the sake of the video is I'm going to set it down, and then I'm going to put a little bit of a semi-transparent overlay on this so you can kind of visualize what's going on. No matter what we do, we're not going to get enough of the cat pattern on here for it to actually look decent on this small bag. However, if we take this small panel and we move it over and put it on top of this very, very tiny Floral Wars piece, you're going to get so much more of the pattern on there, and it just makes a whole lot more sense with the smaller bag. Conversely, if I take this fabric and I'm going to use it for a shoulder bag or a larger tote, it's a little distracting. The pattern on the fabric is so small, you can actually visualize the lines where they're separated or where that seamlessness starts to repeat. One way you can kind of abate this and use the smaller prints is color blocking. So you can take a little bit of this fabric and accent the bag with it, but the main fabric of the bag is going to be something else, maybe a solid color or a much less distracting glitter vinyl. That's all for this video. Feel free to give a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and leave your comments below on what you think, or if you have additional advice to give other viewers. Thank you.